Hey, this is Misery Loves Company, a weekly social reading series hosted by miserytourism.com. Every Friday, we welcome outsider and transgressive writers to come and share their work with us. But this Friday, we're doing something special. This Friday, we're doing a special launch reading for Kat Giordano's poetry collection, Thumbsucker, which just came out. Kat, when did it come out? It came out Monday, right?
Yeah, April 1st.
Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
Yeah, you did a wonderful job.
Thank you. We should have rehearsed before we started. But so Kat has hand selected the slate of readers for tonight. And so before before we started, I asked Kat if she wanted to say anything at the top, and she flatly said no. So I guess we'll have to wait a little bit to hear from Kat. We're just gonna jump right into the reading. So let's do this thing. First up tonight is Nat Rom. Hey Nat.
Hey folks, how you doing? Oh my God, this is so weird. Okay, so I just went to another reading. Like I literally just came from another reading. And there were very relatively loud speakers there, and I like basically can't hear out of this ear. So yeah, that's how I'm doing tonight.
Well, we can
Uh,
hear you just fine.
that's great. If I sound weird, that's why. That's all. Um, Yeah, I have not finished Thumbsucker yet because I'm a grad student who has no time to do anything. But I kind of picked based on that vibe this morning. So this is a piece I just wrote like a day or two ago. Um, it's called How to Remember the Recipe. Forget the way the sun hangs in the south half of the sky and floods your grandmother's kitchen with morning light. Forget the Delft blue tile backsplash sporadically scattered with figures at play. Ignore the turkey bacon you requested. Ignore the cardinal red cushions embroidered in gold padding the table's bench seats. For this recipe, all you need to remember is the crunch of seared potato cooked in butter, salted and peppered to taste. Be patient. Achieving that type of crunch takes longer than you realized. As you peel the potatoes, forget how you used to sleep in until breakfast magically appeared on the table. Forget nights spent mixing potions out of hotel shampoo and toothpaste. Afternoons digging through the box of crayons to find the well-used shocking pink one. Dice the potatoes and pay no mind to the clock. Place the potato cubes in the pan. Hear how they sizzle when melted butter and hot metal find their raw edges. Meditate to the sound of simmering. Cook until crispy. Cool. Um, this next one I actually literally like just pasted it into this document to read like 5 minutes ago because I was like, it kind of feels like the vibe. It is from my visual poetry collection with Bullshit Lit, which is called Random Access Memory. And basically the context is that I this poem is written from searching the word fuck in my Twitter history. Hi, fucker. Roses are red, violets are blue. There's tequila in this breakfast cocktail. Fuck you. Fuck, man, I want a watercolor outside in the gentle breeze. Deciding to let yourself be happy is hard as fuck. My ceiling is leaking and I'm high as fuck. The first time I met my last landlord, I was high as fuck, and my whole apartment smelled like bong water. And I went downstairs to get the sushi I ordered, and he was standing at my neighbor's door. You can now select your ad experience. Fuck your ad experience. Fuck the canon. Make your own. How the fuck do you even find a primary care physician? Do I want to be Geralt of Rivia or fuck Geralt of Rivia? Holy fuck, I am so high. Why do I have horns? I haven't read that one in a while and I forgot how much fun it was to read. Thanks, y'all. This next piece is from the book that is linked in the chat, which I just realized I have not been reading. I will catch up on that later. And it is called Please Lord, It Is Not My Choice to Exist in a Body. Brave body, who art in stasis, turgid be thy limbs, or so it would go were I a believer. were faith not so inextricably sutured to the decay of a body still alive. Thy tendons come, thy breaking done, in body as it is, and it is, for it keeps a calendar of its own, in spirit. Give me this week my ration of spoons, my finite slate of tasks before my back and neck and shoulders form a phalanx of tightly packed knots, and who could blame them when I've treated this flesh suit like a trash can to set aflame? And forgive me my past disasters as I forgive those who were a disaster of their own accord and careened through me like hurricanes come unscrewed, who may or may not have contributed and lead me to something less spiteful, less like a hex from ghosts who hold all my dark corners hostage, and not like a drug, at least not the sort you can drink, not like tequila, something that actually helps, can pull me not into tension but deliver me from pain until I free myself from the creaks in my knees and the things I see when I lull myself to sleep. For thine is the power, the glory, and the muscle I never knew I had until spiteful nerves frayed themselves inside my torso and I learned to bear their weight forever and ever. Amen. That one is so hard to read aloud. Holy shit. I'm also getting over being sick, so my throat is like, what the fuck did you just do? Anyway. I have one more, and it is also from the book that is linked in the chat. And I wrote this one after like possibly the worst workshop I've ever had in my life. Actually, no, the worst workshop I've ever had in my life was the workshop of this poem, and now I kind of read it out of spite. So, um, this is Holistic Guide to Being Agender in Public. Find yourself at an intersection of two things you can't quite name, but trust me, neither can anyone else. No one can seem to fathom this thing, and yet it will never be a source of wonder, only something else to forget about. We're talking about your transness, or maybe the way you are still wrapped with that word, unsure it really should apply to you, that you are really afforded these divine sort of laurels. But don't sit in the splendor for too long. You are likely the only person on this street corner who can see it. And honestly, fuck them. If they want to look at the kind of sunset you get to witness maybe 10 times a year and only see the body of a woman, they don't deserve you. Thanks, y'all.
Nat, those were fucking phenomenal. I love all four of them. I want to talk about the third one though, because you get at something that I've like experienced like profoundly on many different times, which is like the intense tension between like the desire to have any kind of spiritual life and the constant like creaky aches and pains, like the just like weight of like having a physical body. And you get at it in such like on a poetic level, this is perfectly crafted because you can have like the references to the Our Father, you have that prayer-like cadence to the piece, and yet like the entirety of the piece is like so like gloriously sacrilegious, like so beautifully like filled with these like reminders. And like as I get up and as I like creep towards 40, like it becomes more and more obvious just how ruled you are by like just the like decrepitude of your physical form, right? And you get at it in just a gorgeous way, just a wonderful way in the poem. I love the fuck poem. I like it murdered me. It especially the Geralt of Rivia line, like that slew me. The first poem though, finally, I want to talk about the first poem because like that is so like gorgeously rich with detail. I love like just the fine level of like nostalgic detail in that piece. It's a poem that like it depends on that to work, right? You need the shocking pink crayon. You need to be able to like smell and taste the potatoes. You need to be it's like a sensory journey, excuse me, backwards through time. And it works because every one of those sensory details is so fine-tuned and so beautiful and so effective. So those are great poems, Nat. Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh my God, thank you so much. That just like made my entire day.
And also, like, if anyone's wondering, Nat's poetry collection, the link to buy it is in the chat. And also, I assume Rudy probably has tweeted it out or will tweet it out soon. So yeah, thank you, Nat. And Kevin's up next.
Oh,
Kevin Bryce, how are you, Kevin?
hey, I'm tired. We had film club today, and it's pretty hectic. We go to the auditorium and play this movie, and we make like popcorn and hang out and watch a film, and it's all fun and dandy. But God, getting home at 8 o'clock it's just brutal, man. I mean, I'm so good. I'm so excited to be here. I've never been more excited for anything. I'm
There you
happy.
go.
I'm
You got there.
enthusiastic. I'm jazzed. I picked a very fine selection just now of some stuff to read, so we'll get it. I don't know. It might be shit. It might not be shit. I don't know. I wrote all of these while I was on the highway on the way to work, so we'll see if they're good or not. Were you gonna say something?
No, it's all yours. The floor is
Oh,
yours, Kevin.
okay. I've taken myself to fancy dinners and contemplated heavily which fork to use when attacking the salad. Ultimately, I do not feel confident in my selection. It had three prongs, was small and spoonish in nature, like a spork. Plastic sporks at lunch, back in school, looking down a long table and seeing many faces. Outrageous, roaring conversations, dimmed lights in this restaurant. I do not recognize the ingredients here. They seem very expensive. I point to a thing and the waiter nods, pours my wine, watches me taste it, raises an eyebrow questioningly, eager for praise. Incredible selection, I say, and he smiles. The plate comes. There are many noodles and an oozing sort of pustules of sauce, tentacles wriggling in the meal itself, pulsating with life. The what? Hell yeah.
You're the lucky one tonight, Kevin.
I feel pretty lucky. Man, that's absurd. It must be a foul, meager, insect-like existence someone has to lead for this to be the pinnacle of their evening. I can tell that when Thanksgiving rolls around, the entire family laments the presence of this individual at the table. Like, damn, I don't know. Must be pretty sad. I'll continue though. Or I'll just restart. How about that? I've taken myself to fancy dinners and contemplated heavily which fork to use when attacking the salad. Ultimately, I do not feel confident in my selection. It had three prongs, was small and spoonish in nature. Like a god damn it, man.
Sorry, Kevin. I don't. Well, just this is the
Yo, that
unfortunate
was
thing
pretty
about going
hot.
relatively early in the night is that sometimes you're the one who the trolls get. I don't
Uh,
see. I'm not going
People
to let
don't like
anyone
me
else in
online.
unless I recognize their name. So we're good to go.
It's not bedtime yet, that's why.
You
Yeah,
know,
the 13-year-olds are still up right now.
I thought by not existing as much, I would not have so many detractors, but it almost feels like the more I erase myself from the community, the more people come out of the woodwork to not like me. And these are like people I've DM'd in the past, talked to in the past, and
Kevin,
now
I
out of
hate you.
nowhere.
I fucking hate
Oh,
you.
there we go.
I
Hell
fucking hate
yeah.
We'll get them all out of the way. We'll get them all out of the way.
Yeah, they'll roll out
Just
for
keep
me.
antagonizing them, Kevin, and they'll be gone soon.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess they just don't like me. They don't like to see a king happy and
That's
exhibiting
exactly
that
what it is. That's
literature.
exactly what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong, and the thrill they get is better than heroin, and none of us know it. And it's so good, and that's why they keep doing it. Because as soon as they taste that tranny porn, they fucking melt into ecstasy. All right, well, I'll skip that one because it was probably ass anyway.
No,
And
no, Kevin, read it. Read it.
okay.
You're good. You're good. You're good. Sorry about the trolls. You're good, man.
Hey man, it's all right. You should see the DMs I get on a day-to-day basis. I'm pretty used to it. Out of nowhere too, like Tuesday, 3 p.m. Fuck you, traitor. Okay. I have taken myself to fancy dinners and contemplated heavily which fork to use when attacking the salad. Ultimately, I do not feel confident in my selection. It had three prongs, was small, and spoonish in nature.
Kevin, no one likes you, buddy. No one no one likes you. I'm
Sorry. I can't. We're really
It's
getting hit
okay.
hard tonight. I apologize. I apologize.
No, and you know, when you guys were talking about it in the group chat, I was like, that's absurd. Like, there's no way that's gonna happen.
This is like one of the hardest times we've ever been hit. And I think part of it is because the link has gone farther and wider than it usually does.
It
But
might just be because my name's on there.
Yeah, they were actually
I don't
naming
think it has
names. What
anything
was
to do
that?
with you. I think it's just these are the just 13-year-olds acting the fuck up. Um, why? Let's see. I'm gonna take a quick look here.
I mean, you could take a look, but I promise you there's one cranking it right
Well,
now.
why don't you try picking up where you left off?
Okay. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. It had three prongs, was small and spoonish in nature, like a spork, plastic sporks at lunch, back in school, looking down a long table and seeing many faces, outrageous roaring conversation, dim lights in this restaurant. I do not recognize the ingredients here. They seem expensive. I point to a thing and the waiter nods, pours my wine, watches me taste it, raising an eyebrow, questioningly eager for praise. Incredible selection, I say, and he smiles. The plate comes. There are many noodles and an oozing sort of pustules and sauce, tentacles wriggling and the meal itself pulsating. The waiter wishes me luck and places a gun on the table. He says my dish is merciless and is to kill or be killed. I grab the gun and point it at the dish. I fire. I continue firing until it's entirely decimated and smoking, bleeding, and whispering to me, wondering why it all had to end this way. That's all my dinner says as it bleeds to death. Why? What else am I gonna read here? So last time I read from my collections coming out with MD, so I don't want to read those again, but I do have two books coming out with MD, so you guys can take a look at those if you like them. Going home and silently performing chores, face unchanging, moving the laundry and drying dishes, sweeping, occupying time. Minutes are so long now, but when the year is over, it will feel so fast. Explain it to me. Refolding the same pair of pants 3 times, organizing my shirts by color. There are so many hours left before I get to go to bed. Walking the dog and seeing people and wanting to wave, but not waving and keeping my head down. Hearing people laugh and feeling jealous. Noise from upstairs means that people are alive, and again, I feel jealous. Take a bath, listen to an album, want to paint something but not painting something, not wanting, wanting and not wanting at the same time, forever. Cooking dinner but not smelling any of the spices. Tastes like food, gruel, nothing, neutral. Laying in bed flat on my back with my hands crossed like a vampire. Waiting and waiting, waking from a nightmare, sweating, clutch my chest to make sure I'm alive, hug my dog, fall back asleep, wake up from a nightmare and roll over, see how infinite the left side of my bed is without you there, and I sleep on the right side still. Why? I think it's habit. Is it habit or preference? Sleep, sleep and wake up, nightmare, check the clock, lay awake staring at the ceiling until the alarm sounds, avoiding eye contact with myself while I brush my teeth, driving absent minded, contemplate staring off the hill, contemplate the pond, the newspaper headline, pull into the gas station, get out, walk inside, smile. Hey man, good morning. All right, I got two more. They might be longer than I anticipate. I don't read out loud often, really just for you guys, to be honest. So I don't know how long they'll be. Staring at your lips while you talk, imagining a scenario in which I brush the front lock of my phone just deleted that. What the fuck? I just deleted my whole note. Hold on. Staring at your lips while you talk, imagining a scenario in which I brush the front lock of hair out of your face and behind your ear. That move you see in the movies. Watching you carefully because the moment is terminal. Our love is dying and you don't notice. See that your shirt is sliding up as you reorganize the room. Morning sun catching the hairs on the small of your back when you bend down to pick up a lamp, and I die immediately on the spot. Your voice droning out into a black background as my eyes slit focus on the back hair catching morning light. Alligator like the way I fixate on it, starving, drooling. I went to shave your back and spend days categorizing the different strands by length and color. I went to cross-hatch your back hair into a workable yarn. I went to take the peach fuzz from your back and knit a small blanket the size of my hand, and I'd lay with it at night, the blanket made from your back hairs, and sob. Such incredible softness, divine. I don't want to go to sleep. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to see anybody ever in the entire world ever again, except for maybe that glove made out of your back hair. There is a stranger far away, and to find her I have to change my name. I have to wield my new name for many days and nights and grow the same way children grow into shows that are very expensive and non-returnable. I have to wander the world and wind up in North Carolina, a motel, and the stranger and I, this woman, will fall in love, and I'll learn Spanish slowly and work with her at the motel, wash clothes, organize room, empty ashtrays. Spend years like that while she falls deeper and deeper in love with my new name, trusting in it entirely, reveling, praying, God, thank you for him. And I pray she never realizes that she is the stranger, that I forget her name. And my phone, I'm so sorry, my phone keeps glitching. Empty ashtray. And I pray she never realizes that she is the stranger, that I forget her name every morning and afternoon and evening, that while she sleeps, I stare at her back, based in moonlight, face warped at the barrenness of it all, a desert of snow and speckles. The stranger smiled with face twisted, a small blanket in my hand. I practice many words like this at night, holding the blanket. I practice with her, the stranger, and with the naked back. I hold the blanket made of you in my hand. I fumble words in a new language, sentences, apologies, prayers. It never sounds right, and it never will. That probably came out jagged and goofy because my fucking phone keeps glitching, but I hope y'all got the gist of it. And then I have one more, but let me kiss my dog on the top of the head. Come here. Come. Or sit. All right. Okay, I have one more. I have imagined a million deaths and only ever died twice, or once, technically, depending on your definition. They are all incredibly painful. Some are less so, but ultimately, they are all incredibly painful. The final moment is always indefinitely horrifying. There was once a priest who killed people by making them take sleeping medication and attaching their unconscious mouths to helium tanks. The helium tanks came in boxes with children smiling at balloons. I would like my death to be children smiling at balloons. I would like my death to be the climax of a film. I would like my death to be a mystery to all those who never knew me, a YouTube podcast half ignored on the drive to work. But I will never die because I scoff at God. I have survived car crashes and gunshots and knives, disease, love. I have survived eternity like a vampire who feeds on gas station hot dogs and Red Bull. My stomach hurts and my heart is a word I can't say. Confused, my mind racing. Two crows picking at my liver for all eternity. The first fish to flop on land. The first man to own a house. Work is death and the cartoons don't work anymore. I'm sick and I'm failing, and I will fail a million more times. The hearts left discarded and the tests zeroed and shifts unworked, the questions unanswered, my mom sobbing and asking why my sister frowns and understands entirely. My curse is to wound everyone I love. Last weekend, my nephew begged me for dinosaurs, and so I procured them. More a magician than a necromancer, but I can do anything if he were to ask me to. From the earth, I commanded their corpses to dance, and so they did. And he smiled approvingly, saying, Dinosaurs. I held a gun to his head because that is my nature, and I wept and I fired. And I am done.
Kevin, first of all, that's the most beautiful poem about back hair that I have ever heard. No, all of these are fantastic, man. All these are gorgeous. I do apologize about the trolls. I think we finally stamped them out. But no, this is a really, really like this selection of poetry really fucking shows your range. Like, I love the first poem. I love how the first poem like really like strips aside all of the like cute little lies we tell ourselves about where our food comes from, right? And about like what the struggle for life is really about. Like and I love the fact that you like open it as if it's like, you're at a restaurant, right? Like you're about to receive a completely packaged meal. There's about as much distance between you and the origin of your food as possible. And then throughout that poem, the distance closes until you have to kill it yourself. And the arc of that poem, it's like got this like wonderful, like deep, un like discomfort and awkwardness to it that builds throughout. And it's really disconcerting and it's really beautiful. And that second poem, the back hair poem, it's so gorgeously bittersweet. And it is simultaneously like the prototypical love poem and also like completely unlike what you would expect from a love poem. All of the like the back hair, of course, but all of the details you've chosen here are completely unpredictable and yet like really intimate and really speak to the passion here. And I love the twist that comes about 2/3 of the way through, where you come to the conclusion that like this person actually doesn't know you, though, right? Like you've spent all this time building up the intimacy there, and then you pull it away in a really effective way. These are all great, Kevin, and I apologize about the trolls again. And thank you for putting up with the trolls and the bullshit from your phone and everything, and thank you for reading, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I mean, no poetry's reading without a little tranny cock, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All
And
right, thank you, Will.
thank you for taking it back to the trolls, right? Like putting up a fight. Don't let those fuckers get away with it. All right.
Right? They'll get away with it until the day they die, alone, surrounded by dust mites and sadness.
Who among us, though? All right, Kevin.
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
man. And Tom is up next. Tom Snarsky is up next. Tom.
Hey, thank you so much, William, for kicking out the trolls and for hosting this. And thank you to Kat for saying, hey, come read for this. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks, Josh.
Is this your
It's just
first?
really cool.
Sorry, Tom, is this your
Yep,
first Misery Loves Company? I know we've published you a couple of times, but I wasn't sure if you've ever come here before.
I think this is my first one. And Basil's here. He's gonna, make sure I read all the right stuff and he'll help you
Aw.
kick out the trolls if you ask him nice. Thank you. It's a very good time to have first Misery Loves Company. This is a perfect occasion for it. And I like to, when I read, start by reading something by somebody else. So I pulled out this book today for the first time in a little while. This is The Poet Confronts Bukowski's Ghost, which I'm sure many of us on the call know. And I wanted to read this one because anytime I think about poetry readings now, whether it's like the Nightlight poetry reading series or this one, I think about this poem from Kat's first book, which is called Poetry is Not Self-Expression. I mostly write poems because stripping naked and having you all stand in my bedroom and watch me scream at the ceiling seems like too much of a logistical nightmare. And we're proving that that's maybe, Zoom might make it possible. That's true. That was again from Kat's book, and that is one of the books. But I'm also really excited to spend some time with Thumbsucker. I didn't want to read from that because that's like stealing. It's being weird, but I'm excited to hear from it in a little bit. I'm going to read a new poem called Shape Sorter, named after those like puzzles where you put them in the square holes and all of the things fit in the square hole if you try hard enough. What's crazy is we live long enough to toss ourselves differently into the waves of time. Like as children, pain was endless, intolerable, and now weeks float by like coriander in the potato soup of being not our parents, but not entirely not them either. Snow falling more in memory now than in real life. Mid-Atlantic winters, mostly gray duration, punctuated by rain and surprise 65-degree days. Fresh apples in the grocery store, edible stickers that tell you the 4-digit code to type in when they won't scan. The man who invented the barcode scanner helped me survive my teaching career, all 7 years of it, by giving me money. I spent the money on things like whiteboard markers and laminated posters with messages such as, quote, the essence of mathematics lies in its freedom, end quote. Set theory has a high body count when it comes to madness, Cantor lecturing on Bacon Shakespeare connections that no experts now believe, because to look directly at different infinities for too long must just be so inconsonant with living, in which most seeds crack open but don't grow, or are flooded to the surface to feed the birds. Asphalt worms, displaced snails, the whole system of governance that emerges when pack animals need to move upstream, even the phrase pack animal. Does it mean animal in a pack or animal I've put a pack on? I try to tell someone I love I'm here if they need to talk, and the message says seen. The cats take turns rubbing their faces on the new fish toy I got for mackerel, and Christy shows me a video of a possum doing the same thing, slubbing a pillow that smells like his mom until the wildlife rehabber pries him gently but firmly away. The other day, Basil, I tried to pray, but my mouth wouldn't form hail, probably too low. All seriousness, though, do you let ice from the sky hold your tongue? Why not? One long, hideous thought I have kept to myself. What if I've been good enough, cue drums, the whole time? I can't put Basil down, otherwise he's going to start yelling. But that is a new one. And the less other poems I'm going to read are from Misery Tourism. They're going to be up in a little bit. I'm really excited about that. So this one's just called Poem. Rip the Band-Aid off flowers, the closeness of grocery carts, fuzz on new antlers. Yes, I am happier. I gave happier answers on the questionnaire. And speaking of questionnaires, this one is called People Analytics. I thought when I left teaching that I was going to be a data analyst, and I figured out I wasn't going to do that, and this is kind of why. Does your brain know a way to the end? Data point. Have you ever cried in bed with another person? Data point. When was the last time you made something with your hands, like bread or a little clay castle? Data point. You don't both have to have cried. Data point. Searching a long time for what to watch, long enough to have already seen something all the way through by the time you actually pick. Data point. Do you remember love or hope for it? Data point. Both. Data point. Neither. Data point. What is your relationship to pain? Data point. The things you make with your hands, if any, are they mostly for eating or for play? Data point. Any allergies? Data point. Do you think of the moon as cold? Data point. If the world was older, do you think you'd still be in it? Data point. In the long logarithm of evening, when do you decide to set down your burdens? Try again later. Data point. Tomorrow? Data point. How often do you get up and go for a walk? Data point. Listen to your favorite music? Data point. Read the poems of Barbara Guest? Data point. Mistype dead for red? Data point. Make jokes about communism, for which the conceit requires grossly overestimating its cachet in America outside of literary circles? Data point. Fall in love with someone you don't know or can't have? Data point. Both? Data point. Offer evidence for Mandelstam's assertion, translated here by the McCains, that, quote, quiet work silvers the iron plow and the voice of the poet, end quote. Data point. Argue with the swans, data point. Feed animals as sign says not to, data point. Reread The Romance of American Communism by Vivian Gornick, data point. Tell a lie to protect yourself, data point. Tell a lie to protect someone else, data point. Say something your father always said, data point. Feel a bird who is just feel sane as a snow globe, data point. Break your clay castle in half, data point. Accidentally hit a bird who was just trying to get at something in the road, probably a surfaced worm or other precious bit of food beneath the snow melt, data point. Skitter across the river road at night with brightly flashing eyes, data point. Unlock your phone, data point. Ask Google all the sounds animals make, data point. Offer ratings for products or television shows, data point. Complete the survey on the receipt, data point. Circled in dying pen, data point. Sourdough bread, data point. Gone to pay and tapped your card in the wrong place a bunch so it looks like you're trying to will money into the black plastic machine with an ineffectual spell, data point. Update Firefox, data point. Received a fortune that promised financial good news only for the general hand-to-mouthness of it all, not to abate any, data point. Eat the most beautiful 6 syllables on earth, data point. Fast food, soft serve ice cream, data point. Vanilla from a bag, data point. Like white gold. Ooh. That's a water moment. The next poem is called Conflagrations. Conflagrations, you won. And the last one I'm going to read, and with great thanks to William and to Kat, and hopefully Basil's like, I can't believe he's not throwing me out the window. This one's called I Wonder What Marie and That Drum Major Are Up To Now in Heaven. And Alban Berg's opera Watzek, you have Marie, who is very enamored of a drum major, and maybe they had a kid. Beauty's beak notched the egg, scratched the shell, but didn't break it. Scored with a thin black dash, a half rest and a symphony. When it fell in the field, its head against the grass, the mark would be hidden. Hidden in death, but outside it, separated from it. Legible to worms emerging after the storm. When Marie sings the drum song, it's because she knows beauty, knows it like a language she hasn't spoken since she was small, and age was a party, and rocks hid bugs beneath them like wriggly secrets. Marie's soul goes forward in time and withdraws $40 from an ATM. She folds each bill into a bird and then sets them on the water, together for as long as the linen holds out. Then, when they do sink and eventually decay, how they will enrich the soil, she thinks, how the river mud will be thick with presidents and numbers, how it will trust in God. Marie took her sick kid out of school to get ice cream. His shake had a strawberry that kept getting stuck in the straw, and when he cried, she said, "Don't worry," and lifted the lid, ushered the strawberry out, and gave it to him. Sweet syrup had soaked through the seeds so you could hardly see them. He sniffled a little and sucked on the strawberry piece. And Marie thought, maybe next year we can have his party here at Dairy Queen. Thank you all so much. Congratulations, Kat. Really excited to hear everybody.
Tom, those were wonderful. So I'm really honored to have you back in Misery Tourism again. And I'm really honored to have those poems in particular in Misery Tourism. I absolutely love the like data analytics poem because first of all, I'm kind of like I've got a weird like side fetish obsession with like political statistics and shit like that. So, but like I think you get at something with that poem in like in a really sly and I think clever way, which is that both poetry and various kinds of statistics and analytics and these like, like surveys and public opinion polls and stuff, they're all trying to get at some sense of like universal truth. They're both all groping towards like a truth that they can't possibly lay their hands on. And the way that poem is so full and so rich with so many different details, right? Like you get like the absurd richness, but also like irrationality of the human experience in there. So, and you can just imagine this guy conducting this survey, trying to extract like consumer information from there, like trying to take that all and reconcile it and make it into something that people can profit off of or like derive trend data from or whatever. And like it's so resistant to that. And like human existence is so resistant to that. And you get at that in like a really beautiful, really like wonderfully dense, and I think very funny way too in that poem. And yeah, no, and your first poem, like with all the references to like mathematics and set theory and stuff, is getting at a similar kind of thing. And I love like poets who have a willingness to like dabble in interdisciplinary, excuse me, shit like that. It's great stuff, Tom, and I really, really enjoyed them. And O is up next. OF Seri. Oh, did I get your last name even close to right?
You were close. You were close. I'll take it. I'll take it. So this piece is I wrote for the Weird Punk Sub Club, and I'm gonna throw the link in there. It is for next month's, and it is called The Tragedy Brotherhood. The plane banked hard over the Isle of Manhattan. The motors rattled like a fan in an old industrial plant somewhere far outside of the passenger lounge while the city tilted outside the window. Somewhere far below them were cars and pedestrians, while the inside of the passengers' bodies with the soft, wet sacks of their organs were pulled under the weight of thousands of pounds of air pressure. That core-deep tug, rearranging matter deeper than their bones, sent a feather-light tingle through every sack of organs down into the pleasure nerve center hidden deep in the groin. The foul pelvic bone cupping all those sloshing membranes, sealed with a wiry, discolored pucker. At this altitude, the gravitational tug from top to bottom pulled the whole body like a tuned cord. Fragile and visceral, like putting your ear to your lover's chest and hearing the squeak of their insides churning. They watched the horizon through eyes misty with collective memory. They were imagining a view no living person could ever see. And in that contemplative silence, one of their younger members stuck his arms out and said, "Meow," imitating the scream of a commercial jetliner. Paulson, the council elder, burst out laughing, but the young man's sponsor, Robert, socked him in the ribs. Not enough to hurt, but as a warning. The young initiate dropped his arms to protect his sides and buckled with stifled laughter. Worse jokes had been made in the past. Daniels had heard all of them. The pre-formation of the council was nothing but tasteless humor spit rapid fire in chat forums where they were isolated isolated from the general population because it really was too soon. Reduced to a subgroup within a subgroup, forum posters with one favorite note to strike, they came together easily. In a few months, the novelty wore off enough to introduce new topics. And some of their members met offline just for fun. Some grew closer bonds than others. Daniels remembered with pride that first day they all met together in real life as a brotherhood. It was the 5th anniversary, a warm September morning. There was no awkwardness, just the joy of coming home at last. Like-minded fellows all eating pancakes with cheap sugary syrup and warm butter packets at a diner off the highway. They were too excited to sleep after their trip. Happy boys all playing together. It was at that diner that they all wondered why none of them made the pilgrimage to the holy site. To organize that many people into another dedicated move seemed impossible, but they'd already done it once, and there were organizers among them willing to take charge. Even when the party was over and they'd all gone back to their separate homes where their conversations had to live on browser pages at their computers, they followed up with plans. Under those circumstances, they knew they all needed a hierarchy to report to and a narrative to commit to. And some of their councilmen were already part of the Masons. Others were in Greek fraternities in college. Those without fraternal experience still agreed to adhere to the organizing structure of those models where there were presidents and secretaries and treasurers to organize their numbers. Optimistic, they imagined a future where they could pool their money for a lodge, where real council meetings could be held in a chamber, and their members met for black tie galas and banquets. A ghost of that electric enthusiasm still lived in Daniel's memory after all those years. Their dreams felt simultaneously impossible and tantalizingly close, the very definition of just out of arm's reach. They didn't build with gradual progress, but made sporadic gains and losses. Some of them lost contact, then returned with renewed commitment. As far as secret organizations went, they were more lenient than others. After all, they were not traders of state secrets, but enthusiasts practicing a hobby. Their events had to come first as a matter of fundraising, which created a communal bond in a social setting. Their first dinner was the first practical deployment of the council as an inner circle working together to entertain their guests. The party was decorated with 2 massive ice towers and a cheese platter in the shape of a plane. One of the brothers bought an authentic Afghan rug with the date and event picked out in wool, hung like a banner behind the council table. One of their Masonic brothers insisted on draping little white aprons over their groins like silk handkerchiefs. They looked ridiculous, but they returned next year because of how simple it was to separate each other without their forum usernames. Next, their Masonic brothers suggested insignia to designate rank. Once the door was open to decoration, it was impossible to find a satisfactory amount of stuff to have. Suddenly, all the members had ideas for merchandise and a cheap place to have them made. There was a return to the original purpose as men competed to find the most tasteless joke to print on a mug or a t-shirt. There were pins, rings, tie clasps, and cufflinks with little airplane decals, and their webmaster had to open a page on the site to allow people to trade in memorial goods and original designs. Members who outclassed their brothers in tastelessness were treated like champions on the forum. The highest octane designs actually breached containment and became memes on the wider internet, which led to the site being temporarily password locked. The Brotherhood was a private understanding between a select few and not suited for the wider population. They allowed rumors to spread, but the point of their group wasn't a Masonic mission to spread love and knowledge to the world. They were men with very specific tastes who needed a safe outlet for their interests, and scrutiny would suck the joy out of their carelessness. Daniels fell into nostalgic reveries over when the Brotherhood met. When he was in their hall, newly acquired and freshly decorated. In between breaths while performing his duties, he felt bouts of derealization at how insane this was. He needed a minute to pause and reflect. This was all real. This was happening. This wasn't a demented fantasy he was having while drooling into a diaper. While his wife and kids were off having their own separate vacations, Daddy spent some time in the city with the boys. He watched the enthusiasm take over new members and smiled. He laughed at their tasteless jokes with pride. He felt a sense of accomplishment at being a part of their development. The plane banked into JFK Airport. One brother chose to spend the night in the TWA hotel while the rest went on to the Millennium downtown. They spent their first night on their own, visiting their private tourist destinations. Daniels napped. The next day was set aside for business, where they met their attaché in the city to discuss the Brotherhood's interests. The Brotherhood operated as a 501c3 dedicated to historical preservation, which earned all of them one collective seat on museum boards, city councils, and several think tanks. These meetings were long, boring recaps of the prior business year, but useful. No matter how well Daniel thought he'd been paying attention to the shareholder reports, he always benefited from seeing the data rounded up into a narrative. That night, they were invited to a state congress event. The younger members insisted on taking the train there in their black suits and white gloves. aprons stashed in their pockets. At the event, they met council members who'd been working with the Brotherhood's charitable organization for almost a decade, and they cheered when they saw their little groin aprons and shook their hands. They had drinks with the mayor. They took business cards. They made promises, most forgotten, some written down. Daniels left near midnight, and the next morning he ran into some of the other elders, comically miming their agonizing hangover. They all laughed and jokingly asked each other if the new recruits were ready for the main event. All the younger brothers were still asleep, which made this the perfect time to take bets on their behavior when they were inducted into the final mystery of the Brotherhood. Who would back out? Who would soldier through his discomfort? And which of them would be a real enthusiast for the program? Around noon, Daniels went to the hotel gym for a jog on the treadmill and some shadow boxing. At 1, he met the rest of the awaits he met at the museum. They were buttoned and cleaned, refreshed with painkillers, naps, and carbohydrates. The new initiates were sunken-eyed and shimmering with sweat, their faces clammy with a bloodless strain. And Daniels grinned at them and said, "Are you boys ready to learn?" They nodded with their lips pressed tight together. They crossed the street to walk through the memorial, in and out of the giant footprints left behind by the towers. Tourists milled, some reading names, but mostly looking at the monument itself, the big black squares of glossy marble. There were still flowers and teddy bears skewered to their memorial wreaths, incongruous little embroidered smiles pinned to soft faces. Daniels loved these and the garish plastic wreaths and the bright bouquets with lilies and baby's breath and multicolored roses. Tasteless displays of recollection. They stepped out of the loud canyon of traffic and construction into the gently muted silence of the museum. Spotlights aimed at plaques directed their attention in a spiral from their right hand to the left, then onto the far wall and back around. They could hear recordings repeating somewhere in the museum. Helmets and soiled safety vests hung suspended in plexiglass containers. Daniels wet his lips and grinned at the elders, who smiled first at him and then at the recruits. "So what do you think, boys?" "Shh," Daniels teased. "Let them drink it in." The build-up was half the fun. The patient plodding around, waddling behind solemn tourists and antsy children. They watched the recruits check out each section and met again at the crucifix made out of debris. Daniel's excitement was so sharp his grin felt as strained as a baring of teeth. The delicate skin on his wrists throbbed with his pulse, and his brain burned with jet-fueled daydreams. "Well," he asked. He wondered how each of them were handling the reality of sitting in the cold leftovers of a national fervor. In a heavily vetted, impersonal museum exhibit, it was as stale as it was shocking. To Daniels, that rapid loss of surprise made it more interesting, but he wondered what it was like to see as someone who grew up with it in the background of your life. "How does it make you feel?" the elders demanded, closing in around them. "Sad," a recruit said finally. "Sad and angry. It was a tragedy." The elders all laughed, slapping each other and the new boys on the back. Some of the new recruits smiled, others defended themselves. They tried to tease back, but the elders kept laughing as they crossed the street to their hotel. This was the best night of their year every year. But like with all fantasies, their annual ritual was a reenactment, a staged performance rehearsed at home and in smaller hotels with less historical significance. They practiced alone without the ritual of their annual pilgrimage, solo and with partners. For Daniels, nothing would top that first night they'd booked a hotel above the memorial, when the cold, substantial reality held them back like a tether. That night they were virgins again, shy, inexperienced, abruptly confronted with the vulnerability of public confession. That night was unique for being their first collective swan dive into a raw, naked reveal. It was the first time in Daniel's life where he'd had a new experience that wasn't just a curiosity, like a cruise or a long vacation or a new restaurant, but an uncategorized, unsanctioned rush. All other annual nights were his way to reaffirm that first night and share it with a select few who were vetted through application and observation to share a part of that shock. That night, they shared a group dinner after one of the elders hired the girls. The recruits ate with no knowledge of what to expect. The girls came in while they were having drinks, and the new recruits smiled with pleased confusion. The girls did their jobs, chatted them up, settled with the brothers they found some chemistry with, calmed them down. One of the elders leaned over his table to talk to a few others and said, "We should tell them." They nodded. Daniels caught the eye of some of the other elders. It was time to reveal the final mystery of their brotherhood. Every year they drew lots to see which one of them would give the final speech before the night began, and that year was Daniel's. Conversation died around the room as he stood up and raised his glass. He thanked them for another year. He welcomed the initiates to their final test. He toasted them, and he drank. He savored the taste in his mouth, watery Coke and whiskey, ice slivers clicking in his glass. He told the history of the Brotherhood, the origins he rolled over in his head constantly at this time of the year, the forums and memes that escaped the forums and made them lock the site up tight. He was rambling, but his blood felt hot and alive. He talked about true brotherhood and felt tears well up in his eyes. The alcohol was mixing with his excitement to make the moment more beautiful and surreal than it already was. He talked about patriotism and loyalty and commitment to supporting each other along with a wider global community. He talked about embracing each other without reservations. He talked about the bravery of discomfort, their commitment to fighting censorship in all forms, even if it meant expressing in ways that were deemed inappropriate to the wider world, and he was repeating himself. The brothers all nodded solemnly, and someone in the back said, "That's right." The timing was perfect. He'd done this before and seen it done when other brothers gave the speech. He could taste the event horizon as the ingredients dissolved into the whole experience, and he revealed the final mystery of the brotherhood. "Tonight's the night, gentlemen," Daniels declared. "Tonight we live the dream. We do what we all said we'd do if we got the chance. We're going to do what we've all dreamed of. We're going to fuck 9/11." All the new recruits stiffened like frightened goats as the elders burst into a roar of thunderous applause. Some were already hard in their pants, and the girls were responding. Girls pressed against the men they'd picked, or who picked them. Sets of two were led away. Some stayed to press against their clients in the confines of their seats. Low-cut dresses slid down their chests, exposing lace and bared brown nipples, pebbled with cold. Daniels drained the last of his glass and looked at the girl he'd pulled for the night. She was a redhead, artificially lightened to a rose gold, pale lips and dark eyes exaggerated in the low light. Her loose bra strap wilted down her smooth arm. She smiled and took the hand he offered her, said something flirty about being with the most important man in the room that night as he took her up to his room. He parted the curtains and looked down at the dark streets of the financial district, knotted up around interconnected parcels of land and extinct land formations from the days before city planning. From this hotel, they could see all three major sites: the footprint of the towers, the new tower standing over it, and the museum sidelined in another building. She sat down on the bed, back to the window. "Do you want me like this?" She laid down and spread wide, giving him an equal view of her in the window. He grinned and imagined a curtain of white ash rolling down on the window as heavy as a wave. He imagined the popping and clicking of shards of bone, glass, and steel raining down on the building. He couldn't remember if the hotel took damage or was one of many saved from harm by a simple change in the wind. He ran his hands up her legs to push her skirt back as he imagined steel beams buckling right before they telescoped down onto the heads of survivors, still waiting to see if their coworkers had made it out alive. He hooked his fingers into the hem of her warm panties, pulled them down, and thought of how the fires were fueled by hundreds of tons of paperwork from some of the most powerful firms in the world. The bonfire became a self-regulating inferno as it went from room to room, entering cabinets like it had a purpose. He looked outside the window as his hands traveled higher up her torso, pushing aside her bra. She laughed and wiggled without unhooking it. He tried to see the empty space where all that office space used to be, thousands of square yardage of cubicles and performative lobby space reaching for the sky. Somewhere out there was the airspace where a tightrope walker crossed the abyss, twice, without a net or line. Somewhere out there was the entry point for the first and second plane. He tried to imagine it as a perfect burning portal, but in reality it was an ash heap on contact. Wingtips, fuel-burned carpets in the cotton seats of desk chairs. The girl moaned as he bent down to lap at her cleft, spreading her arm between the lips. He ran his tongue along the opening and felt a pulse throb. He pulled his legs out of his pants in a hurry, kicking aside the inside-out legs. He entered her and tried hard to imagine the smell of burning fuel, hair, skin, and metal. Hot, warm flesh squeezed around his cock while spare details flew around his head. It was a beautiful Tuesday morning, not a cloud in the sky, comfortably brisk at a breezeless 45 degrees. An image flashed in his mind of a tiny embroidered teddy bear stuck to a memorial wreath with 3 stitches to make it smile. He wondered who left it there, whether it was a spouse or child or parent. He imagined them standing in the big marble hole, looking for the familiar place where their relative's name was left, their mark on history. He looked out the window at the fish-like spine of the shopping mall in between the memorial and the museum, and thought of the people in there going about their late-night business. The homeless people seeking shelter, the late-night commuters coming home from dates or just beginning them. He imagined the teddy bear in the black hole of the dark memorial park and the stranger looking at a name on the wall. He looked down at the big black square in the ground and shook as he came. In the morning, there was a quiet, casual sense to their group. Now that the surface tension that held them all together was broken, it was almost as if they'd become strangers again. The new recruits were boisterous, cracking jokes like they'd already forgotten about the initial shock of performance anxiety. Some of the boys had sex with their dates in the room with each other, and they laughed at the audacity. Daniel smiled with his job and wife and kids coming back to mind. He remembered that none of these people could fit into the schedule he kept every day of the year. He'd have little bite-sized portions of community when he opened up the old forum on his browser, but this physical sense of cohesion wouldn't exist for another year. All right, thank you guys.
Oh, you murdered me. You murdered me. There's so much that I love about how this piece is set up, how it's structured. Because, first of all, I love the anthropological level of detail here. Like, you have a real intense understanding, like the whole way you structure this secret society, and you get into the V bulletin board stuff. Like, you understand, like, how bulletin boards work, how message boards online work. You understand, like, you get into the nitty gritty of these secret societies. You like really like effectively and beautifully sketched like the site of the Museum of Ground Zero at Ground Zero, excuse me. And all of that is very effective just from a storytelling perspective to drag people in and get them like um to get them hooked into the narrative, but it also is like so wonderfully effective at disarming the reader, right? Because we're like, oh, okay, I know where this is going. And then and then the reveal hits, and the way you do it with the like, we're going to fuck 9/11 line, like it's like the plane hitting the towers, right? It's so unexpected, it's so unanticipated,
I'm gonna
and
say how fucking hard it was to keep reading, watching you going nuts. And then the chat next to me just started flying as everybody was like, what the fuck?
so good. I had no idea. I was like, oh, because I was fascinated. I was like, oh, where is this going? Like, there seems to be this secret society, and something is going to happen, especially when they show up at the 9/11 memorial. But then after that, like the way you describe that like series of sexual encounters and the constant like perverse allusions to the date of 9/11, and like they're looking they're looking at the crater, and all of that is like exquisitely done, like coming from like probably the person who has like published more 9/11 related shit than any other lit magazine. I have to say, this is something I have never seen before, and you totally caught me off guard. I love it. Oh, it's wonderful.
Thanks.
So I should point something out that other people in the chat I think pointed out, is that the fuck 9/11 line actually happened at 9/11 on the East Coast. So yeah, like,
Oh, holy shit, really?
yeah, no, that actually happened at 9/11 o'clock. So yeah, like, oh man, I wish there was a way to highlight that, but man, it was good.
Well, thank you for mentioning that, because now that's on the video. That's saved for posterity. Oh my God. All right. Well, thank you, all. Thank you. That was wonderful. And so up next is Adam, and I'm pulling up the text document here. Adam Janforcaro. Did I get it? Janforcaro.
Yeah, you got it.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. This shit is so unhinged and I'm loving it. So I'm gonna try and read some unhinged poems. I'm gonna read two poems from my book Every Living Day, which Kat edited. So in debt to her, and so excited for their book Thumbsucker. It is a terrific, terrific book. I'm gonna start with a poem called Lullaby at Overtown. It is there's an epigraph. It's a mysterious and fatal history surrounds Overtown Bridge in Scotland, where dogs have been known to jump off the bridge to the rocks 50 feet below. So says the bridge, this is where dogs leap to their deaths. Oh, by the way, I should say, if you have dogs around, close their ears. So says the bridge, this is where dogs leap to their deaths. Every surrounding structure tuned in, knotting loose with gravel. For every platform, every overpass is an altar from which to ponder. The story of a shadow, the long-drawn exhales of town folk and self. At home, after being talked down, there's an entire internet to browse to take one's mind off such ruthless gravity. There's a website to stream movies, another to advise if a dog dies in any of them. Collectively, the man's family chooses a documentary on birds, and the birds dance so silly the way their bodies jerk in black-winged ballet in feathery folk dance, movements made for mating. Such brilliant tweeting sounds, a stunning orchestral score, but not a single bird song to remind the family of their fatal flaw, that their wings, not wings, are merely shoulder blades, as limited in motion as the moon's rotation. So says the bridge, says the shadow, says the self. Even the wandering albatross cannot remain forever afloat, for flight is as much a farce as forever is. Even in dreams, a floating dog can hold as much weight as a diving bell, descending deeper into dark waters. All right. I don't know what, I should have known what poems I'm going to read. All right, I'm going to read two poems that mention books. This one is the first one. It's called Poolside with a Paperback. DeLillo begins chapter 5 this way, says, let's enjoy these aimless days while we can. I think, yes, precisely. A page later, a character confesses this, says, I want to immerse myself in American magic and dread. I think, yes, that's it. Such are summers and pop songs, the way everything is distraction. Soon a chemical cloud will enter the novel. I think, yes, of course. And I consider the sun, count the willful ways it harms and heals, like a kind of lover, an entire government. I want to read more, but it's hard to concentrate. The music, the muggy air, the horrible way sunscreen makes my skin feel, the frenzy of public pools, how everything shines so unpleasantly. Sweat beads lotion white on my chest, the slick of the paperback even slicker with oily fingers. I look up from the book and into the looming black. I think, oh, chemical warfare. I think magic. All right, I'm going to read a poem that title is almost as long as the poem itself. It is the longest, dumbest title. It's called In Which a Boy Alone on a Picnic Eats a Rainbow Cookie Laced with Poison, but the reader doesn't know if the boy is aware there's poison in the cookie or not because the boy isn't real and the cookie isn't real. However, the rainbow shape is real because there is an actual rainbow in the sky being set on fire by a bunch of angry fascists. That's the title. Here's the poem. I have a confession to make. I used to think a parabola was a different shape entirely. Less a shape really, more a limit, an edgeless cookie cutter. Maybe it's the weight of refracted light that scares me, each of them on top of the other, the way they're there, then not there, the foreboding smell of sugar, but more primal, more pill on your tongue because you suck at swallowing. The entire world is an oven left on overnight. In the morning, I am the only figure without a shadow. Okay, this one is called Consumption. 8 years without meat, which is not to say this body has gone 8 years without death inside of it. I have swallowed rot as rank as riverbeds, gnawed mold pitted pride until it reached its dim-lit dwelling of near womb. I cursed the fertileness of healthy harvests and once in a dream ate an entire human baby, prompted by speculation that I was supposed to be born a twin. Believe me when I say I truly believe my parents were hiding one half of me. Some hospital mishap, an uncoupled pairing. What other reason could there be to feel so deeply the sense of loss, a relentless pull toward negative space? For a long time, I misinterpreted each form of absence as hunger, and yet there were 3 meals a day, fresh fruit. I sat my shadow self down for dinner, sang grace to God for his love of slaughtered hair. I slipped gravestones to my lips, digested new timelines. In one, I plucked cockatoo feathers with my canine teeth. In another, Man-toothed men took to my skin with butter and herbs. I came out of the oven warm and watchful. My shadow disappeared. It was noon or night, and this carelessness caused a scene. But soon the sun shifted and there were shadows again. I licked their dark lengths to taste once more the sacrament of shame. 8 years, and I can still feel a coppery coating in my mouth, the rawhide undertones of a longing to be devoured. I'm 37 now, my body at its heaviest. Somehow I thought this weight would bring me wisdom, but different cuts of sunlight can still stretch my twin self wishbone thin. Outside the window, my ghost is across the pasture. Soon it will walk its way back to me. I will be full again, but not fully. This one is called Third Summer. It was just published a week or two ago in Tinderbox Poetry Journal. Read between the lines and find mint in the dirt, butterfly bush, the dull pain of an afternoon pulling greens from the ground, one invasive species displacing another. It's alarming the ease with which I would join a cult under the guise of community. To pick blueberries at daybreak, lie naked on a Turkish towel for a full-fledged afternoon. Weeks without looking at a screen and to not bother how it's bound to end. In my late teens, I worked at a sleepaway camp my parents called cultish. I gave up hardcore for hippie songs, tie-dyed my bed sheets, plucked ticks from my warmer parts. Halfway through this third summer, I left involuntarily, was placed in intensive therapy. One cultish crowd for another, the heat of hating oneself raw. In nature, forest fires are part of an innate cycle of grave and growth. Read between the lines and find both ash and dirt underscoring my plea for purpose. Misgivings behind too long fingernails, traces of ruthless earth. How easy it is to singe one's hand on nettle, thinking experiment. And then the last poem I'm going to read, it's a sonnet about Vonnegut, and I'm calling it a sonneget, but the formal title is Vacationing with Slaughterhouse-Five. I should have been in therapy by then, but found instead a dockside paperback reaching down the pants of some red state. I fractured my elbow that summer and continued breaking. I came out to more people. My body filled to the brim with want, attracted most to the men so too ashamed by their yearnings. All the ways a windless day will call you out on your shit. At one time, I thought if I soaked an orange seed in semen, it would grow into some wondrous progeny. That's impossible, of course, but it still feels good to tell God we moved on without him. When the Tralfamadorians tell Billy that babies wouldn't be possible without gay men, I cried citrus seeds long enough for a grove to gather around me. Science fiction saved my life that year. I later gave birth to my worst depressive episode. I thought, great, it's finally out of me. Then I had to care for it, to feed it. I too was hungry, famished, and placed the placenta on the countertop to thaw. Thank you.
Holy shit, Adam. These are unbelievably gorgeously written. I am frankly and honestly in awe of these poems. There are individual lines here that I am hugely envious of. You have an unbelievable knack for just like, I mean, to say poetic turns of phrase is like, yeah, sure, right? Like you're writing poetry, but there's such an intrinsic kind of poetic beauty to a lot of the individual lines here that I am just I'm in awe of, and I'm scrolling back to see like some of the ones that I've mentioned. Like stretch my twin self wishbone thin, and oh my God, they're like dim lit dwelling of near womb, like the way you conjure images that don't exist, that can't exist, right? And yet you conjure them absolutely vividly with a real like unbelievable emotional intensity. And like that, I think it was the second or third to last poem you read, the one about like digestion, right? Like that one is absolutely fucking mythic in scope. You are like so deep, not only like inside the human gut, but inside like the shared unconscious mind, right? Like inside the like Jungian collective unconscious with all of these incredibly vivid like mythic and folkloric images that get at something like tangible and real and really like moving and effective about human life. These are beautiful, man. Thank you so much for reading. Um, I think actually, I think I'm up next. Yeah, I think I am up next. Okay, one sec. So Kat asked me to read, and I haven't been writing much for a while now. I've been in like a real slump for a while. But I did want to read something, and so I went to Kat and I'm like, I don't know what to read. And she said, read your most self-indulgent work. And so so I went back and I looked and I found just about the most self-indulgent thing I've ever written, and it's a Substack post, and I apologize for this. Take it up with Kat. So what this is basically it's a kind of stream of consciousness piece. It's written in real time while I'm on a road trip. So basically, just to give a little very quick background to this piece, because it will be completely incomprehensible otherwise. A few years ago, when I was living in New Hampshire, I was living in New Hampshire and working for a small nonprofit there where I worked for a number of years. And yeah, my boss took his own life while he was under investigation for maybe some possible malfeasance or something. And not long after that, I quit that job. And for a while, I was kicking back and forth between going back and living with my parents and also living with a close friend in Virginia. And this is just like some notes that I wrote on a trip between my parents' house and Herndon, Virginia. So I'm going to read this. Once again, it's deeply, deeply self-indulgent, but so what? So this piece is called Notes Taken on the Road Between Dickinson Center, New York and Herndon, Virginia, Saturday, October 30th, 2021. And just a little note at the beginning. The following impressionistic, fragmentary paragraphs were written while traveling from my parents' house in upstate New York to visit a friend in Northern Virginia. My original plan was to fall back on my favorite vice and add footnotes to provide context and reflections on my trip and my present miserable state of mind. But after reading these notes during the most recent Misery Loves Company, I was advised not to make changes or additions and to let it just goddamn be what it is. I was also told I shouldn't add an explanatory note to the top, but there are some vices I cannot quit. So I've only made a few minor grammatical corrections and plugged in a few links, mostly to songs and other media, where I thought they might enhance the reader's immersion. Here it is, as it was, mostly. Heavy morning fog when we leave. Gorgeous. I take a couple of pictures with my phone. They capture nothing. Whatever beauty I saw is gone. The lighting is wrong. Too bright, too clear. Cheap phone, cheap camera. You have to pay a premium in cash or in toil to see the world recreated as you imagine it. Otherwise, you have to settle for reality. Sterile and lame, overexposed. Can't stop watching YouTube videos about hikers who disappear into the woods and die of exposure. Sometimes their bones are found, years later, next to their gear. Thinking of the thin windbreaker I'm wearing, bought from a thrift store years ago, stained, should be replaced. Lying on a pile of autumn leaves, my fleshless rib cage zipped up inside. How wonderful that our trash will outlive us. How wonderful that our work will outlive us. A car going in the opposite direction crosses into our lane to avoid an Amish buggy. When the supply chain breaks down, the Amish will be the only ones left on these roads. I say this knowing exactly what I am doing. I can't help myself. Provocateur, provocateur. Soon my mom is talking about some apocalyptic Catholic prophecy. The Virgin appeared to school children somewhere. Garabandal? I sound it out in my head, and the Broderbund software logo materializes in my imagination. False signal, static, adjust the dial. Apparently, Mary showed these poor kids a vision of engines breaking down, the mechanics of modern civilization failing. My mom says it'll be an EMP attack. I say something like, that seems unfeasible on a global scale. Suggest a solar flare. My dad says there was just a major solar flare a few days ago. Adds something about how the northern lights are supposed to be beautiful this weekend. I think, I think, this memory is already deteriorating. Connective tissue breaking down. We're now in a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot in Potsdam, 40 minutes from home. Don't remember much of that time, was typing, missed so much while trying to impotently capture this one trivial ass moment. Forget it. A beautiful new hospital in rural nowhere, empty lots and strip malls. I want to say cornfields, but there are no cornfields. I've seen no cornfields. Where am I? My dad says something. I miss it. I ask him what he said. The sun didn't stay out long. Excuse me. The sun didn't stay out long. Oh, it's raining. My mom points out an optometrist's office and asks if I remember when I went there. No, I don't even try to recall. He was very slow. The rain is getting heavier. Tom Russell's Stealing Electricity plays. There's a Mexican dead on a power line. My dad and I sing along in a subdued, mumbly way. It's a favorite of ours. I played this album because I knew he would want to hear it. Still, our enthusiasm is restrained. We sing along because we can't help ourselves, not out of a desire to be heard. Your family is weird, Redacted said when my parents and sister visited for Christmas, back when I was in Maryland, before the pandemic at all. You don't talk to each other. There's so much silence. I love the silence. The silence is a blessing. Khaki strip mall church. The exterior is a garish blue or purple. Hand-lettered poster board signs in the windows, full of shalls and zows. King James pretensions. I wonder why someone would start a church in a strip mall in the North Country. There's so much cheap real estate, so much empty land. It's disorienting to see artifacts of urbanism in the country. I think of Manchester. My mind fills with resentment and loathing, hatred. That fucking city, that fucking job. 7 years gone. Jacob broke his back for 7 years only to be given the wrong wife. Jacob was a con artist. He had it coming. My boss's body hanging in the tree, Judas's body hanging in the tree, both imagined, never seen. My second boss, the devout Christian, the cocksucker, joking about the body, joking about the box he found with my dead boss's dildo inside. God, I hope his children never read this. I remember the funeral, his 4-year-old son crying, sitting there going over my eulogy in my head, twisting his eulogy in my hands, thinking about how the box with his ashes was smaller than the box with the dildo. Rudy ran a session of a homebrew RPG a few months later, one set in the real world, in our real lives, and I graphically described beating my new boss to death with a hammer and then walking into traffic. It's a relief to write this. I was complicit. I am complicit. Saw two more Amish, excuse me, saw two more Amish horse-drawn carriages. One had sheep in the back. I'm regressing. This summer was so nice. The bliss of rock bottom. I don't know how to describe it. Maybe I will provide something in the footnotes. Retroactive meaning, the lie that I can express tomorrow what I am trying to say today about what I felt yesterday. But my point is, it sucks now. I can't write. All my projects barely started lie fallow. Over a week sedentary in bed with some shitty cold atrophying. But it was off before that. I've been worthless since September. Since my last trip to Virginia? Maybe, but be careful about inferring causation. What's going on? I usually love the fall. We finally reached Watertown, the interstate, accelerating. Rest stop. Examine my hairline in the mirror. Have become obsessed with the thought that it's thinning in the front, receding slightly, slightly. more scalp visible between the follicles on the right side of the part than the left. Do I have my right and left reversed? Imagine the mirror, flip the camera, rotate Lakitu, bash the C buttons, hear that awful jarring noise. That noise that means no, that noise that means fuck you. I'd rather picture myself as a skeleton in the woods, as a rib cage in a secondhand windbreaker, than picture myself bald. Vanity, vanitas. The rain has stopped. There's just enough blue sky visible to reveal the depth of the clouds. They're layered beautifully, thin, gray, smoky wisps, passing over heavy white cumulus. I don't have the vocabulary to describe this. So much of my language is conceptual, abstract. What a fucking shame. What good is an author who can't write vividly, who can't capture beauty? I notice I use beautifully already in this paragraph. Google beautiful synonym. Get frustrated by my options. They're all awful, childish words. I think of bad creative writing assignments. I decide to leave it as it is. I put on Willie Nelson's The Troublemaker for my mom, his gospel album, a mutual favorite, pushing the Venn diagrams of our shared tastes to their limits. The first track, On Cloudy Day. The rain is back. Syracuse is a giant shopping mall. Traffic congestion, smokestacks and parking garages encroaching on the interstate. A Bank of America sign retrofitted to the side of an ancient cathedral. One row of ultra-modern, multicolored townhouses in the midst of graying brick and rot. We get through quickly, but not quickly enough. Looked at Twitter for a few minutes until the revulsion hit. Put down my phone and looked out the window. Farmland that hasn't been worked for years. Small homes with chip paint. Hills, standing water, peak foliage, beauty, beauty, beauty. Whitney Point, more hills. Most trees still have their leaves here. Orange, red, brown, green, gray, gray, gray. Heavy fog, low like smoke. Steve Earle warbling over fiddle music on the stereo. A brown ramshackle trailer perched on a cliff over the highway. A glimpse of a weathered wooden cross. A roadside memorial. Probably a dead child. Maybe a drunk or a construction worker, laid out while laying out asphalt. Gorgeous, drowning in beauty. The hills continue. Trying to negotiate lunch and the prisoner exchange with Redacted and my parents. Details are set and then withdrawn, shuffled, redealt. We'll meet in Pennsylvania. The Tim Hortons parking lot just over the border again. All right, good. God, it's so beautiful. A small quarry, piles of shale, Pennsylvania. The Tim Hortons parking lot. Across the street, Tobacco Junction, Smoking Joe's Tobacco Shop, side by side, serving the refugees fleeing New York's astronomical cigarette tax. Border towns always attract black markets. Tom Russell has a line about border towns. I don't remember it. I'm tired. 6 hours of sleep last night, maybe. Doubting this exercise, hating my words, saw Redacted on the way to the bathroom. Have to figure out where we're going to eat for lunch. Logistics are loathsome. Ugh. After agonizing multi-party deliberations, we went to the diner across the street, next to the aforementioned tobacco outlets, full of old people. Christmas tree decorated with plastic skeletons and black and orange bows, topped with a massive polystyrene skull with a headdress of bows and black and gold balls. Mom tells Redacted that the kids at church dress as saints for the feast of Christ the King. Note, not Halloween. They do not celebrate. I suggest that if they'd opted for costumes depicted the saints' martyrdom, they could cover all of their seasonal bases. Plus, most classical art of saints depict their martyrdom, so it's not blasphemous, completely in step with tradition. I'm typing at the table, feel self-conscious, know this is artlessly worded. Redacted just asked if I'm writing a novel, and then joyously pointed out a wreath on the wall. That wreath over there says eat, drink, and be scary. Okay, I'm putting the phone away. In the car with Redacted now. Your route may be affected by mid-Atlantic floods. Mistaking Burger King sign for full moon. So many crosses. I feel like I'm drifting away again, I admit. The sky is constantly beautiful, dynamic, high contrast. Something below the conversation, a memory of past trips, Thanksgiving, the perfect time to travel. A sign that just says vanish. Okay, and now I did want to read something by Kat since it's her night. I am I picked this poem because it's my favorite one from Thumbsucker, and I kind of picked the piece I just read in part, not only because Kat asked for the most self-indulgent thing that I'd written, but also in part because I think it pairs okay with this poem. Anyway, the poem is To the Rust Belt with Love for Jay. You finish your gig at the bar, reading poems about the bar. You ducked into last month after another gig at the bar, reading poems about it. In Missouri, in Ohio, in Pennsylvania, you drink a whiskey that tastes like a whiskey you once wrote a poem about remembering. That's how everything is. Now, at the end of the poem about the end of America, a beaten horse liquefying in your mouth. In every whiskey, the memory of a better whiskey. In every bar, the memory of a better bar. The one where you asked the too thin woman her name, and she told you, and her hand on your shoulder became the poem you've been writing ever since. It's a dream you have while driving, and you've been driving for a very long time, passing ghosts of your own car as the I-76 swallows itself. You think if you can somehow get off this loop, there's a dive waiting there, pure and lawless, a gas ball at the beginning of time, or a memory, and inside the first girl will be sitting there, drinking a whiskey, waiting for you to show up. Okay, so um, now we've got a special guest, I believe. Kat, do you want to introduce your special guest?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. First of all, before I introduce my special guest, because I was really dead set on after you read your thing to do the thing you always do and comment because I mean I know I can't do it as well as you because I don't have as much practice. Um, but yeah, I asked you to read the most self-indulgent thing that you had. And this is exactly what like the kind of thing I was hoping for. And again, I'm not good at this because I don't do this every week like you do. Um, but yeah, I think the thing that strikes me the most about it and the thing that I found so like arresting about it, especially, this is my first time reading and hearing this read. Um, and knowing that you didn't edit it at all and knowing that there's so much in here where you're talking about how impossible beauty is and how impossible writing is and how impossible it is to like squeeze any joy out of the situation that you're in, but then like hearing you read this now and seeing everyone in the chat being like this shit is beautiful. I don't know, I just think there's something really interesting about the contrast there. And uh again, I'm not as good at this as you, but I wanted to say something, so that's my thing.
No, Kat, I really appreciate that. I'm really like authentically touched. I'm going to be honest, I don't love this piece. I don't. I don't know why. Because as I read it, I just see all those little imperfections. I see the way that certain sentences are phrased, and I'm like, oh God, that's clunky. But I appreciate all the kind words in the chat, and I appreciate your kindness, Kat. I really do. And thank you so much. And thank you so much for putting this reading together, by the way, although I should probably say that at the end. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Well,
your special guest.
thank you for hosting it. Anyway, yeah, my special guest is not Bukowski's ghost, like people were saying in the tweet, but my real life best friend, Martha Larkin, who is here to I heard there was going to be a speech, but I don't know if I could just let you go. I don't know.
I can just go. And I feel like it's important to say, like, fuck, I'm so nervous. And my job is literally to make Gen Z care about Shakespeare. So I'm used to working with tough audiences, and this feels like the toughest one yet. So I do have a speech, but it's also kind of a poem, and I'm not going to look at you because I will cry. So I'm just going to get into it. Not to be, but almost all love poetry is about the speaker, not the subject, except the speech that's a poem that I've written for Kat. I'm honored to be a special guest here. I know there were rumors of Bukowski's ghost showing up as the special guest, but it's just me, Kat's best friend, asked to read some poems. I'm sorry to disappoint in this way, but it's worth asking, why me to introduce Kat's new collection, Thumbsucker? Well, Kat asked, I think, because best friends are contractually obligated to say yes to such things, and said yes, please, when informed that I would absolutely be taking this as an opportunity to give a little speech on their behalf. We know Kat's a self-aware attention whore who is lapping this up. I think this speech is maybe actually a poem, I think. But to formally start it, I need to start by publicly airing a grievance in a forum would be very rude of Kat to stop me because there are numerous witnesses. In Kat's first book, the poet confronts Bukowski's ghost. She begins with an epigraph from the man himself. Of course, it's possible to love a human being if you don't know them too well. And the truth is that I fucking hate it. I don't hate it just because I fucking hate Bukowski, although that's true. Nor do I hate it because I'm a pompous Shakespearean, although that's also true. No, I hate this epigraph because it is only when I began to know Kat better that I initially began to like them, let alone came to love them. Bear with me. I think it is fair to say, and she would agree, that we were not instant soulmate best friends who locked eyes across a classroom the first day of classes and have been inseparable ever since. We were college classmates who spent hours a week in the same miserable classes, and just that. We therefore spent a long time in that awkward phase of acquaintanceship where you are not sure if it is weird to say hi in a public space rather than just saying nothing at all. We were both writing tutors desperate enough to work the dreaded 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. drop-in shifts, and we would regularly never speak, even as we sat at the same table across from each other. To be honest, I thought Kat didn't like me, and consequently, I decided that I didn't like them back. Yet, in my hazy memory, we quickly became friends at 2016 AEWP when we slept together. No, not like that. Although I'm sure some of you got very jealous, scandalized, or both. Our technologically inept professor, who likely called the front desk to schedule the rooms, the only godforsaken person to do so, didn't seem to realize that he had gotten a queen-size bed with a spare roll-out bed, and thus the 3 students present had to decide the sleeping arrangement. Knowing what you all know about Kat, them being the more normal, safe choice to share a bed with, should tell you how absolutely fucking weird and creepy the other girl was. Following mostly cordial testing and texting and conversation, Kat and I looked at each other, and that was that. We spent the next 4 days getting to know each other intensely, talking late into the night and early morning, drinking copiously, laughing and crying, luxuriating and getting to actually know each other. I could not tell you what we talked about exactly, but I remember these conversations under the covers of our shared bed, virtual strangers, as some of the most pleasant, rewarding conversations I have ever had. We left Los Angeles, and that might have been it. The possibility of liking, loving a person because you just don't really know them at all. We became actual friends on April 4th, 2016, after AWP, and I have the carpal tunnel flare-up to prove it. We sent a series of text messages back and forth before I became brave. I told Kat, kind of glad you texted me because I was like, she probably thinks I'm weird and creepy if I was like, I liked hanging out with you in LA. We should hang out in Erie. It was circumstantial. Don't be weird and creepy. For someone who enjoys being compared to Wednesday Addams, you can still somehow get the sense that I did not want to be perceived as weird and creepy. My next message further elaborated. I am the person who wishes I could send someone one of those notes like, do you want to be friends? Check yes or no. Cat 6 praise hand emojis, an implied yes, led to this moment. Me, the special guest, with 3 question marks on the poster. Why tell you all of this? Because my love for Kat has only grown exponentially over the last near decade of our friendship. I love Kat for all the versions of myself I have and will continue to love, precisely explicitly because I know Kat too damn well. It is a love born from copious Facebook messages sent at all hours. It is love based on consuming the insane number of number 10 nugget combos from McDonald's in my shitty PT Cruiser Betsy, listening to the whiniest music ever written. It is love paid with crying together, watching the 2016 election results, and sleeping on the same shitty couch together in the aftermath. It is love we have given when we are at our messiest and it feels impossible to be loved. It is love imbibed in the thousands of inside jokes that we have shared. It is love in knowing exactly the answers to the question, why are you fucking like this? As a pompous Shakespearean, I'm reminded of Sonnet 116. Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever-fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. This is all to say, I've long known exactly how the sausage is made. I am overly familiar with the ground up meat that becomes the stuffing for the poems that you eat up. I'm therefore honored to give you some of my favorites to start. So, Tom kind of stole my fucking thunder a little bit by reading what I was going to say was my first poem, and that is Poetry is Not Self-Expression. For a little context, though, we have a shared professor of poetry that we love to hate and love to hate, who would write this on the fucking chalkboard for every single poetry workshop and class he ever taught. And it is a response to that. So with that context, poetry is not self-expression. I mostly write poems because stripping naked and having you all stand in my bedroom and watch me scream at the ceiling seems like too much of a logistical nightmare. The next one is also like one of my favorites, and I think you'll understand why, given my own poem. A one-night stand. The kind where you don't touch, but wake up in the same sort of haze, feeling spent. That same wanting more, though just yesterday you didn't know how much there was to want. Intimacy leaves a predictable stain, marking the carelessness that happens when two decide honesty at any cost can no longer be contained. It was a mess only we could make, a dull headache only Captain and Coke could leave behind. The unmistakable timbre of the words beautiful and love after years of restraint within my stomach. Your straining cry, my hands in your hair like a baby. I held you, and the night unfolded around us, spill after spill, each one more irreversible than the last. It all risks melodrama. Waking up from this kind of wild confession, swaddling a shaking friend into coherence, and thinking in the back of the cab home that what you have seen is more sacred than a naked body. It is what makes night like this into what they are, a frantic scramble for the parts we have always longed to touch, the beginning of a lifetime spent scheming our way back for the rest. I have one more poem I want to read, and then I'll be done. Stray. Let me learn how to be your cat without you. No more doorstep tokens of rodent spines, these mangled thank yous for shelter from the cold, the comfort I took watching snow pile on sidewalks from my windowsill perch, gone. Let me wander the alleys at night, tonguing serrated tin can edges for scraps, screaming at dozens of winter moons, contorting to gnaw tree needles from black tangles. Let me sleep between trash cans and wake yowling for the placid slow mice that live near walls. Let me scour the garbage for the others, use their nails to floss the things I never knew I had. Let them mistake for purrs my soft underbelly shivering, aching still for the touch of your hands. I think it's also worth mentioning that I didn't tell Kat I was going to write her a poem. So she is as surprised as you guys. and I hope I delivered on the crying. Because
Yeah,
you were
almost. I can't, but almost. If I didn't have to read, I would not be holding it together nearly as well. Jesus Christ, thank you. Best special guest at any reading ever. W's all around. I promised myself I would not cry before I read, so I will really try hard not to do that.
in my defense, she said, make me cry.
I
So
did.
I delivered on my promise.
It's it seems like it. Martha, that was fucking beautiful. I'm not going to like critique a speech to a friend the way that you would a piece of literature, but it is undeniably clear how close you and Kat are and how much that friendship means to you, and you like express that absolutely eloquently in a way that, I mean, fuck, like I know like Kat's gonna cry, but I was almost crying. Like there's a real authentic like intimacy and tenderness there, and sometimes like literature obfuscates those feelings, right? And good literature reveals them, and your speech is on that level at least definitely good literature, because the feeling there, the intensity of that feeling is crystal fucking clear, and I'm sure Kat's honored to have a friend like you. Thank you, Martha.
You're welcome.
So
I take it away to Kat because she deserves it.
and speak
Bye. Oh,
Kat,
go ahead. No,
are
go,
you
go. If
no
you were to say something. Okay.
no are you composed? Do you need
I'm
a
composed. I'm good. Except the problem is that like before I read, I was also gonna like say some heartfelt bullshit. I mean, not about me. Obviously, I think enough of that has been said. Well, enough of that can be said. But thank you, Martha. Jesus Christ, it was, I think, the most. And I've had a lot of really shitty, horrible poetry written about me. That was the most beautiful thing I've ever had anyone write about me. But anyway, I was gonna say, unrelated to all of this, my own heartfelt speech, which is that probably like a year ago, I would not have thought that I'd be doing my book release for my poetry collection at a Misery Loves Company, because I thought all of you, well, not all of you guys, because some of you guys are here because of me, but most of you guys fucking hated me and thought I was a terrible, annoying, drama mongering SJW. And so I'm, really happy that I was kind of welcomed into this community with open arms as sort of like a newcomer. And I've gotten to get close with a lot of people who are regulars here. And like that, I don't know, the fact that I'm doing my book release here means a lot to me. And I love all of you guys. And yeah. So without further ado, this is my book. It's called Thumbsucker. If you guys forgot why you were here, I kind of did actually. And I'm gonna start with the title poem, because I think that's like a good thesis for the book. It's called Thumbsucker Poem. Fuck me, I guess, but I want everything soft and full of kittens. I want to step out and romp to the car on cushy pink clouds. That feeling of late afternoon on a Friday, my freshman year of college, eating Oreos while the older guys left to buy beer, bottled sugar delivered to me daily by a puppy in a bright red bandana. I want that look I know I'd get if I started seizing in the middle of Walmart, but for no reason. A halo of faces that just want to help, dripping with concern as they piece together the plan, a eulogy minus death plus balloons. I miss getting stickers. I miss second grade sick days and people running when I scraped my knees. I'm not convinced I'm damaged to miss these things. I felt damaged in the city when I'd come home at night, tired, oily, all covered in the world, coughing, car horns, my building super calling another guy a cunt on the sidewalk. I prefer to believe there's somewhere better I was meant to be born. Some gummy thumbsucker world, a quilted, trashless warmth that lasts forever, where there's always a hug when you need it. When I was little, my mom would enter my room and turn a key in the butt of a little stuffed sheep that played You Are My Sunshine over and over, slower and slower till it would stop. And I'd lie there the whole time, frozen in fear in the dark as the song petered out, wanting to cry at how temporary it was. This next poem's about Cabin. I don't know if Cabin's even still here. But this next poem is about /for Cabin. So I mean, if he's not still here, that's even better, because he doesn't like to be talked about when they're not here. It sucks shit trying to make a new life. I've done it before and it wasn't my favorite. I hated every second trapped in the first act, my whole life piled in my arms, impossible to know, conversations amounting to nothing. Could have jerked off to the thought of an inside joke, lurid fantasies of collective lore, someone seeing a mug in a Target and knowing it's something I'd like. I walked so long in that silence, talking the whole time. Then you came and I was rooted, not right away, but a little, enough for the cracks to fill, for me to see you weren't alone in that slow swell into something like family when I'm squinting, then all the time. What I'm saying is you don't have to do it all right now. Hang out a while and you'll lose it like a bad cough. A new tooth in the gap you've been running your tongue over, a thin ring thawed around the light. So this is my favorite poem in the collection. It's called Creation Myth. The reason it's my favorite is because I feel like a lot of the poems in this book are about other people, and this one is just about me. So that's why I like this one. Creation Myth. When I was young, I swallowed a cone of light. My stomach hurt, and everyone said I was lying. The rest is history, you know, like a dog who swallowed a small toy, got into the glitter. You have to bend and pick out the little bits glimmering in the shit. Every year feels like 7, and I only know a few words, and I only know them in certain tones. You don't know why I do many things, why a noise can be enough to make me dart off to the edge of the yard and stand there all night looking. I'm afraid the light will run out and it will be like dying. I'm afraid of how small I want to be, of what passes now for control. Like a cartoon doing science, pulling a lever so hard it breaks off and the machine runs forever. I will now walk to the store in a tight little shirt. I will be a blurred cutout in the background of some man buying coffee, and if he talks to me, I will say what anyone else would say at a time like this. I will pretend to be a person who is not so great, and I will pretend to be pretending. I folded down a lot of poems that I thought I wanted to read that I've now decided I don't want to read, but that is just the way that it goes. So I think that probably some people here have watched, this is like one of the most recent poems in the collection, like one of the ones that snuck in right before I finalized everything. The Last of Us show, the episode 3 that everyone was freaking out about because there was like a whole gay love story in it. I wrote a poem about that, so it's called The Last of Us episode 3. Well, here I am again. Saw something beautiful on TV and now it's everyone's problem. Especially yours, for the messages I'll leave you while you're sleeping, increasingly crazed, stopping with honey and blood. The devil made you in some kind of factory. I want you to cuff me to a fence somewhere like an abandoned dog. Would you kill me if I asked you to? Would you cry? You won't know how I sat on the bed tonight, frothing at the men on the screen while they fucked and fought, their grunts passing through me like weather. If only I were a man, and you were the type to find this kind of thing arresting, or to ask me on nights like these what I'm thinking about. Right now, I'm thinking the price of love is never being boring again, never having a thought that isn't dragging the whole world with it, screaming by the scruff. Some might say that's the joy in it. I feel like I have to like say something to stall while I'm flipping through this book. But it is my night, so I guess I can be annoying and unprofessional if I want. I'm reading this poem solely because I know that Will really likes it. I read that, and this is like one of the first things I ever read at Misery Loves Company, and it's called Whale Fall. The names we called each other stuck in the teeth of scavengers. A sleeper shark with fuck toy in its mouth, and queen, though I never said it to your face, eating my suck your soul out eyes and how you called them that. New invertebrates colonizing my holes. The stick that was up your ass, providing shelter to untold numbers of organisms who've evolved to draw nutrients from the environments hostile to most known life forms. I could never get your love, and now it's baked into the sediment, and the shellfish starve trying to suck it out. Even in death, milking this thing. I feel something like jealousy. Your fingers rot in my mouth. I'm gonna read, I think, just 2 more. This one is called, this is like one of the only ones I didn't fold down to read. So this one's called The Queen of Drag, and it's about I never like explain any of my poems. This is about this guy that I used to be friends with. And we always kind of like were closer than the other friends in our group because we didn't feel like we belonged. And then later, after we all kind of lost touch, I saw that he like does drag now and is like really good at it. And I've never reached out or said anything, but I was just like, oh, cool. Like we both had like, you know, some weird shit going on and we both figured it out. So anyway, this is called The Queen of Drag. I wrote a lot of poems about you, and in each one you were sad and wanting to go somewhere else. Somewhere at my parents' house, I'd chew on ice cubes for you over the phone, and you tell me about all the times you thought you were going crazy too. So worried about hearing things, you'd start to hear them crawling in the walls. Hot mass pressed together in the blackest dark, our little pills dissolving. I sang low in your left ear, huffing your cologne, and you lit up like the last neon sign from Miles. You almost killed me once, speeding down the wrong side of the bayfront on a fat hit of DMT. You're always saying, maybe I'll go to Japan or Amsterdam, maybe I'll fuck off and go into the woods and tell no one where I'm going and come out someone new. You were always saying we were the same person, and you were right. So right that when you left, I died a while, reduced to muffled crying, water in a small white cup. It was the way you persisted, your loss vibrating the edges, like a loud fight in the driveway outside a party. And who could blame you? Too cool for the world, spilling from the walls of every rented house we drank in, glowing pink and viscous. On the timeline, I see your eyes dusted with blue shadow by the back wall of some club, and it hurts me in the best way. Your smile, a kind of revenge you were always too pure for, making all the guys gaunt and monstrous in your light. I'm gonna read just one more. This one is called It Can't All Be Over. I don't think I've ever like read this, and I've done a lot of readings, so. This is one of the ones that I kind of wrote, like sometimes you write poems really quickly and they just like come out all at once, and sometimes you have like 2 lines and you just like hold on to them for like a year. And the lines in here that I held on to for a year were, I'm a peeled fucking lemon. So I was like, I really want to fucking use this. So I finally did, and this is that poem. It can't all be over. We still have a few good things. Whatever it is humming in the air between 2 people deciding to tell the truth. I've never been more naked than right now, asking how over you think the world really is. I'm a peeled fucking lemon. Let's take 1 minute. Spare a thought for the grace it never feels right to talk about. Late at night, the hope I unfold like a blanket. The stains and the fraying like something from a war, but it isn't a war. It's the checkout line on a Friday in 2002 with my mom. We're in line and she says, one day you'll be old and you'll say, back in my day, we didn't have hovercraft. We had to walk everywhere. We had to sit in our cars for hours stuck on the ground. And none of the kids will know what you're talking about. That's all I got. Thank you guys. Jesus. I feel like I should have like said something else or like made another speech or something. I don't know, but thank you. Like I am so flattered that all of you are here and all of you are awesome. And I'm just like so touched that people came out and read and stuff. So
Yeah, the turnout here has been fucking incredible. This is a great crowd. Cat. So you have read most of these poems at Misery Loves Company before, and the ones that you haven't read, I've read before because I blurbed the book. But so I want to say so I wanted to say something original and new about your work that I haven't said on the many occasions that you've gone to Misery Loves Company. And there are a couple of things. Listening to you read these pieces again and listening to you read them together that really stuck out at me. What I'm like increasingly fascinated by is the way that like time functions in your poems. Because superficially, like because a lot, not all, but a lot of the poems are like fairly concise, right? And fairly direct in their language. There's like the illusion that time is functioning in this kind of normal chronological way. But no, like in all of your poems, there's this incredible like layering of time where like a thing will be happening and you'll be nostalgic for that thing while it's happening, and you'll be regretful of that thing while it's happening, and you'll be thinking about another thing that happened before. And it's all like, I think that's one of the reasons why I love that Rust Belt poem that I read so much, is because it, and I'm only realizing this now as you were reading, because there's like, it really pulls out one of the real thematic, I think, threads here in your work, which is that sense of like there's this cyclical, repeating struggle, like this cyclical, repeating nature to time, but that you're not just like passively lying back and accepting in a kind of learned helplessness way. You're like in these poems an active, constant struggle with the way that time functions and with the way that perception functions and the influence that that has on friendships, on relationships, on like just the fabric of like interconnected like human lives, right? And it is so, it's so gorgeously and effectively done because it's so fucking subtle, because you can read these poems and be like, oh yeah, this is a moment in time, and not like, no, actually, this is 8 moments in time layered on top of each other, and you didn't even realize it. It's really, it's really wonderful. And another thing that I really respect about these poems and really love about your work that jumped out at me is the way that like everything is a struggle towards beauty in its, in the purest sense of the form of its form, right? Like a lot of people will give lip service to the way that like poetry is about beauty, and like the piece that Martha read about how like, well, poems are fundamentally not personal, like poems are some abstract exercise to get at beauty, right? And sure, but what I love in your poetry is that it's entirely personal, or well, not entirely personal, but you get the point. It's deeply personal, but it has not in any way abandoned that struggle towards beauty. And it's showing that struggle in progress. It's not like, here's a beautiful thing. It's like, no, like there's this active, vicious fight that you have to engage with between your, with yourself, with the page, with other human beings, to try to get your hand around that beauty, whether it's a beauty that you find in a relationship with another human being, or a beauty in something abstract like, you know, like a sunset, or a beauty in an episode of a television show, right? Like that, your unpacking of that episode of The Last of Us, which I haven't seen, is like, it's so wonderfully fraught. It's like you're at war with that episode. Like it's not like, oh, I watched this thing and I critiqued it. It's like, no, it's like this thing is beautiful and it's also trying to kill me, and it's altering my sense of self while I watch it in this fundamental way. And it's just like the way that you capture that like dynamism of like the beautiful, and the way that like you don't just let it be like the awful, like painful struggle to have something beautiful exist. I don't know. I'm rambling now, Kat. Your work is wonderful. I fucking love the book. If you guys haven't read the book, you should buy the book. The link is in the chat. It's on Twitter. Buy the fucking book. Okay. Kat, sorry.
Why are you saying sorry? Thank you. Yeah, I feel like I should say something else before we're done, but I don't know what that is. But again, just thanks everyone. Like, thank you, Will, for hosting and, helping me put this together. Thank you everyone for coming out. Thank you to everyone who read, who just made me look like a fucking novice. You guys are so good. Thank you, Martha, for being the goddamn best in every single conceivable way, and agreeing to do this weird thing of coming here and then like knocking it out of the park. And yeah, thank you. Holy shit, I am very emotional and pretty drunk. Goodbye.
All right. Thank you, Kat. I think we'll call it there. How could you express it better than that? Thank you, Adam, for putting the link to the book in the chat like 37 times. I appreciate that. All right, guys. This has been a wonderful night. Thank you once again to Kat for putting all this together. And thank you to everyone who read. Thank you to Nat Thank you to Kevin, wherever you are. I hope you're doing okay, buddy. Thank you to Tom. Thank you to O. Thank you to Adam. Thank you to special guest Martha. And thanks again to Kat for writing this wonderful book of poetry and for putting this night together. So this has been Misery Loves Company. I am going to, after I stop recording, leave the Zoom meeting open for people to hang out. We always have like a little after party or something after. But this concludes the reading portion. This has been Misery Loves Company. We do this every Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Anyone is welcome to come and just lurk and listen. If anyone has a piece they want to read and it's a normal MLC and not one of these special events, you're welcome to come and read. And yeah, we tweet out the link right before we begin from our Twitter account at Misery Tourism, all one word. And that's it. Thank you so much, guys. I think I'm going to end it there.